Hello, everybody. Welcome to PMHI Passions. My name is Gina Virginia Casella, owner-operator of Present Moment Hypnotherapy International. Present Moment Hypnotherapy International is committed to creating safe spaces for folks to share their stories. PMHI Passions is an opportunity where you can share your story in about a 25-minute time frame, unscripted, unedited, and you have to talk about something that happened to you regarding a spiritual experience, high strangeness, or perhaps you do some ritual work, moon ritual work that you'd like to share with others, or perhaps you had a session with me that you would like to share a testimonial on. We are a story species, and sharing stories is absolutely medicine to add to our ongoing alchemy toolbox, our wellness toolkits. We just can't seem to add enough stories. And something I like to always remind folks about is that stories are actually never about the plot. The plot is the vehicle driving the underlying themes, the underlying messages. And so this is an opportunity to share out. Today, I've got Brian Ruhe with me. A big welcome to you, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us. Brian and I met. Brian hosts a meetup group called Preparing for ET Contact. And I really resonated with his group. If you're interested in speaking for a good, 2, 3, 4 hours, Brian would probably absolutely love to host you. PMHI Passions, it's about 45 minutes tops. And I'm really thankful to have Brian here today. Brian and I also, we were working behind the scenes. Brian initiated a group called University Galacticus. And behind the scenes, I was part of just planning that, throwing ideas around. We were group channeling together, and it was a phenomenal time. Did a lot in a short period. And now we're here doing PMHI Passions, and Brian gets to be my guest. And on Preparing for ET Contact, Brian was kind enough to let me co-host a few sessions. And so I'm really thankful for Brian to be here today. And those of you who follow me on YouTube might be aware that Brian was actually one of my clients, and it's full disclosure. You can watch the video. We met in a hotel. Brian really wanted to make it work, and his significant other was there as well to witness it. So Brian and I, we have always so much to say. It's going to be a bit challenging, I think, for us to keep it limited, and Brian gets to be the star. And so Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. A big welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Gina. I can talk about, he did the hypnosis on me in February the 15th, and we focused on paranormal childhood experience I had. So I could start with that. It was perhaps my most powerful otherworldly experience. I remember it starting when I was around age 5, because my family moved to Fonthill, Ontario when I was 5.5. So I remember it started around that time. It would come and go for a few years. I would be laying in bed at night, and I would become paralyzed and have this vibrational state coming over me. It would kind of like a buzzing sound, like a vibrational sound, like zzz, zzz, and I would start to kind of lift out of my body, and I was quite scared, of course, terrified, not knowing what it was, and I'd be clinging to the side of my bed, and I'd feel this vibrational state lifting up. So I always managed to prevent myself from leaving my body. I always resisted it. And during the peak of this experience, I would experience this swastika rolling over me. It would kind of peak out and then subside. And there's other things that came with it. Like I received mental imagery of these two kind of vertical creatures with tails, and their tails would touch, and then I would get this electric shock. So it was all very strange and paranormal. And this might happen once a month or every 2 months. And I never discussed it with my mother or father or my brothers and sisters. It was this deep personal mystery. And I would go to bed at night. It was kind of apprehensiveness feeling whether it was going to come over me again, and then sometimes it would always come from the north, and I would experience it coming from about a 30-degree angle coming down from the north towards me. And this swastika would roll over me. And I didn't know what a swastika was at that time. It didn't have any meaning to me. And later as an adult, I met my my Buddhist monk teacher, Ajahn Soni, said, well, you're probably in Nazi Germany, your previous life. That's probably what it means. That always seemed true to me. So that was my first kind of experience. And then when I was 15, my dad got this book, Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, describing out-of-body experiences and the vibrational state. So I understood, oh, that's what it was. And so that time I was trying to astral travel based upon this book, and I had some limited success. I was 16 years old, and it was early in the morning once I left my body, and I saw myself lying on the bed, and it was dim in the room. So I tried to turn on the light, and I was trying to flick on the light switch. But of course, my astral finger would go through the switch and didn't work. So I was getting frustrated with it. And then I went back into my body. But then when I woke up, I realized, oh, I was just out of my body, but I was half asleep, during the time that happened. So it wasn't that lucid. And around that time, I had another strange experience. I woke up early in the morning and I heard a Beatles song in my head, Eleanor Rigby. The lyrics were backwards. It was reverse lyrics, and that was so strange. And I got up, but my father wasn't downstairs playing a Beatles album. Like, he would sometimes get up early and play yoga. I checked. So, but there's nobody there doing this. So that was strange. I just heard this. So that was kind of one-off. I never had experience of just hearing something, hearing music, and then it was backwards. So never had any explanation for that, what it meant. And then just carrying on chronologically, when I was 14, my dad got us into meditation. We're doing a popular meditation technique. So I did that sort of off and on. When I was 17, my big experience was I was reading this book, again, with my dad's influence. He was, I guess, my first spiritual guide. He's really into a lot of Eastern philosophy. He was a spiritual searcher. I was reading this book, A Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes. And this really initiated a real kind of spiritual phase in the summer of 1977. I was 17 years old, getting more mature. And then I experienced my first significant channeling phase. That's how I would describe it looking back on it. Like, I didn't know what channeling was at that time. I didn't use that terminology, but it was definitely a heightened state of consciousness. Like, my mind was merging with a bigger mind. Like in Buddhist cosmology, we think of devas, these are the angels, heavenly beings, and how it seems like I went through a process of kind of commingling consciousness with this higher realm. So it was a very transcendental state, very hard to put into words. I was writing at that time. I was writing down a lot of my thoughts and ideas, getting into a lot of spiritual concepts and the unified field theory and things like this. And I couldn't really remember it until the next big phase 2 years later, when I was 19, in the summer of 79. So this seemed to last throughout the summer of 1977. Then it faded, and I went back to school to grade 13. I was kind of lost. And then 2 years later, when it came back, I could recall the heightened state that I had before. It's kind of like you don't remember it until you're actually in that kind of heightened state. So this happened several other times throughout my 20s and my 30s. Again, these heightened channeling states of mind. It wasn't until I was initiated into these Tibetan Buddhist teachings on how to channel when I was 34 in 1994. I was with Shambhala International, a large Buddhist organization. I was initiating these channeling teachings. It showed kind of the technical process of how to do it and what's going on. So then I understood, oh, that's what was happening to me when I was younger. So I got more of that understanding of the kind of impressions you get, sort of higher thought impressions coming through. So my experience of channeling was one of not hearing voices or have a sense of particular personalities, more a stream of ideas which were heightened beyond myself, like more profound concepts. So those are always precious times, or I guess my highest experiences. And when I was 17, my father was concerned. He takes me to a psychiatrist, and he probably diagnosed me as manic depressive. So I thought, well, this is a manic depression. But now they have a more term, bipolar, which doesn't really describe it as accurately as manic depressive, like high and low. And I wasn't a depressed type person. I'd have these higher phases. So I always thought of this as very precious state of mind, my highest state of mind. Like I didn't think of it as a mental illness. So I went along with this label. Okay, I'm manic depressive, but I always wanted to cultivate this and get it back. And how did this happen? So it wasn't until I became a Buddhist and I was initiated into, an understanding of how this works that I could kind of regenerate it. So I've been doing this higher realm practice since 1994. It's also in my book, Freeing the Buddha, Chapter 9. So I can do it when I want to, but the Buddha cautioned about this, not to do it too much. You get kind of bleary-eyed, or Buddha said, channeling can lead to mental derangement. So I try not to do it too much, but I have more of a familiarity with it, an old shoe kind of relationship with it. When I want to, I can get into this state of mind. So that's some of my high strangeness. We're not out of time yet, right? We just started.
Yeah, we're doing good for time. I know I'm always jam-packed full of questions. I know a little bit more insight because we chatted so much, but for folks who are tuning in out there, I feel like it's really powerful to mention that back when you were 5 years old, that you were genuinely terrified. You didn't know what the heck was happening. Your bed is shaking. There's a swastika. You don't even know what the symbol means. You didn't have control over that. But then it's like, did you on a subconscious level? And it's interesting because when you were 5 years old, nobody talked to you about this. So hopefully somebody out there is listening to this and going, that happened to me. And now they're gaining insight listening to your story. But I think it's powerful to mention that these ETs that visited you, these mantids, that they're actually part of your star family or spirit guides. How would you describe them? Because they're in sync with you, possibly a higher version of you. And so really they were always there even before age 5. It's just you were awakening at age 5 and it naturally terrified you. And really there's nothing, the paranormal is normal, but we're raised to believe that it's not. How would you respond to that? Because now you intentionally try to reach out to the mantids that you were very, terrified of at such a young age.
Yeah, I think the hypnosis I did with you helped a lot because you confronted that fear I was feeling at age 5. You taught me how this was just my own sort of self-protection system at the time. That's how I was trying to protect myself. And you really got me in touch with my inner child. Since that time, I would think of my inner child, this young Brian, about that age, like age 8, I have a better relationship, almost like my son, this Brian. So yeah, I think it does relate to the ETs. My cat's meowing here at a bird going by.
Oh, there you go.
Bring Happy Cat in. He's very agitated watching a bird.
Hi,
Yeah, so I think the ET relationship might go back prior to my birth. I don't have memory of that, but yeah, now I've developed a whole visualization practice of visualizing myself being on the craft, like the University of Galacticus. This is these are real mothership UFOs. They could be about 200 miles across. This has been described by some witnesses. Even airline pilots have seen these things. So I imagine kind of my higher self being on this craft and with this lecture hall kind of situation that some experiencers have described, with mantids giving lectures or talking to hundreds of human beings there in real time, as well as gray aliens and the ancient grays, the wise ones who lecture to them. So this is very much part of my inner world, my inner visualization practice now. And it's kind of a process of bilocation where I'm here and my body is a human being also there simultaneously. So the idea is to try to tune into some of that higher realm wisdom, develop the relationship, and try to get some more guidance ideas from the mantids and the grays about how to manifest on this earth. And our project, like you're involved with, our University Galacticus project, we're planning on going public with that soon, like making videos and going public. So yeah, that's part of our kind of our group process of bringing this ET reality back more down to earth, and trying to decouple fear from the ET relationship in the minds of the public,
Yes, and that's also a big part of PMHI passions is getting rid of that stigma, getting rid of that box that was put around us long ago that inhibits our thinking. When it comes to astral traveling, like you were describing earlier, you would wake up in the middle of the night, but it was like your spirit or the ghost within you is leaving your body, and you couldn't switch on the light because you had an invisible hand. And I'm wondering, have you ever done more exploration while in that state, physically trying to walk around, open up drawers? Have you left your home, wandering the streets at nighttime? Have you engaged in something like remote viewing? Would you consider this remote viewing? And the reason I ask is out of interest because part of me wants to move beyond categories, yet at the same time, I recognize we need a language, a common language, angel ET, UAPs, UFOs. So I'm open to whatever language you're using. So um, can you give us more information about your astral
Yeah.
travels?
Yeah. I several times up until my 30s that that state would come over me again. I never really had any control over to try to make it happen, but sometimes I'd be laying awake, usually in the morning after I woke up, and the vibrational state would come over me. It's kind of like uh, an electrical current going through the body. So I realized, oh, this is another opportunity. So at that time, I had less fear, but I wanted to develop. I remember when I was living in the West End here in Vancouver, and I was 21 years old. I felt the vibrational state, so I lifted my arms. It was my astral arms. They're like milky white, and I actually saw them. And then I another time I actually managed to sit up, but then I got scared. I never went any further than I went back into my body. So I had these times when I was almost getting out, my arms would come up, or I would sit up, or other times I would feel that electrical state and try to separate, but I never actually succeeded. It was only that one time when I was 16, when I was fully out of my body having that experience. Um, so I would just have these random experiences every few years. So I would almost get there. But when I became a Buddhist, like Buddhism doesn't emphasize that you should try to astral travel. The Buddha described various psychic powers that might come upon someone as they're developing along the spiritual path. They might cultivate these psychic powers. The Buddha said, that's fine, you can do that. But he didn't encourage focusing on just trying to develop psychic powers. So I just wasn't really trying to do it since that time. And nothing's really happened, I guess, since my 40s. Haven't really felt that vibrational state. It also helps to lie north-south through the head to magnetic north. And when I was a child, I was in a bed with my two brothers, but only my bed was aligned north to south. So maybe that helped at the time.
Interesting. You never know. And you were talking about lucid dreaming earlier, and you knew that this was not a lucid dream. And I myself am going through those motions where I'm asking, like, is this a lucid dream, or am I actually astral traveling in a different dimension? I'm personally figuring it out for myself, but for you personally, you keep mentioning this buzzing electrical feeling around your body, and I'm wondering, is that the key maker breaker that, oh, this is it, it's not lucid dreaming, it's astral out of body, or
Yeah, I
are
think
you still
so.
tethering with it?
Yeah, I would say that's that electrical vibrational state. It's a physical, real sensation. It happens, in full consciousness when you're about to separate. So I'd say that's distinct from lucid dreaming. Although I have tried astral travel, or sorry, remote viewing since 2021. I was with a group of about 6 of us with Bruce Angus and Nanaimo in Vancouver Island. He was
Okay.
initiating us in this remote viewing group. We would meet every 2 weeks. So I had some sense of some success with that. Like he would pick a target and I would get aspects of the target. And within University Galacticus, like my girlfriend, she's more adept at remote viewing. So she remote views right into the mothership, and she has a real interest in DNA and genetics. So she would tend to remote view that area of the ship and see more about DNA and cylinders with the fetuses in it and things like that. So I've done a bit of that remote viewing to sort of poke around the craft, different areas, different rooms or places in the craft. So I do a bit of that as well. And sometimes when I'm just laying down awake, sometimes imagery will come to my mind. I'll start seeing things just spontaneously.
Interesting. And I wonder too, because we have a lot in common, just with our experiences and trying to figure things out. And I find when I'm dreaming, I don't know if you can relate, but I don't get a lot of images. And it dawned on me the other day, and that's just it. Did you have a thought or did the thought have you? And thoughts are having me these days. So I don't even know if this was my own thought, but it dawned on me that it might be so for me, because most of the lives I've lived, I actually didn't have eyeballs. Or if I had eyeballs, I lived in the dark or in the water, so I didn't use them. So in this life, the biological one known as Gina, when I'm dreaming, that's why I feel things a lot, and why I'm on the sensitive side, because I have sensitive skin, not in the sense of makeup, which is true. You know, I have to be careful with perfumes and stuff, but it actually means the vibrations around me. So even in my dreams, it's like I'm falling back on this way of knowing. And when I have a dream where I'm actually visually seeing things, it just possibly means that it's a reflection of a past life or a Gina from a different time area where I did have eyeballs, and I used them to actually see. Does that mean anything to you? Can you relate?
I know one thing when I have these visions, it tends to be um, black and white, but with like a reddish hue on a black and white film. So it's like I'm actually um, looking at how the movie unfolding. Like just 2 days ago, when I woke up, I saw like a camping scene with a campfire and some rocks and a snake and trees and various objects. It was quite clear, like just watching a film, but it was like black and white on a reddish kind of film. So a lot of times my dreams, I think it's the same kind of black and white, not vivid colors.
I've been paying attention to colors lately, so that popped in my mind. And it's interesting because I wonder, as far as animal spirit guides go and past lives and stuff like that, what animal out there sees black and white with reddish type hues like you're describing, and would that provide you with insight, intuitive insight? I just have so many questions for you, but
Yeah.
I'm also wondering lots of things. If a 5-year-old approached you today and said the same story, this happened to me at nighttime, my bed was shaking, what would you say to that little one?
Well, I would say don't be afraid of it. I would say go with it, follow with it. It's not going to hurt you, and if you, it's fine to leave your body because you'll come back naturally. It's not a problem. So I would say trust with it and go with it, and let's stay in touch. We'll talk about it as it unfolds. It'd be good for him to have a guide or someone to talk to about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
even just to be heard, to be listened to, for somebody to say to them, okay, that happened to you. I believe that happened to you. The person you are at age 5 is the person you are for life. And if you're trying to share a big story like that, or you're not even allowed to in your situation, that's quite damaging to confidence, to development, because now we're going to be spending how many more years of our lives questioning ourselves. I was hopeful you could share with folks how you channel these days. I call it dream journaling. So I'll sit there early in the morning and write whatever comes to my mind. But when we were doing our hypnosis session, you wanted to start a routine. You desired this at the time, to wake up in the morning with a download and get it all down. And I'm just wondering, how is that working out? How do you do it? Did you change your routine? Something that's kind of annoying for myself personally is turning on a bright light. So I can manage with my lamp on, but even the computer, I feel like I'd like to move to typing, but it's that bright light in my face. And so can you speak to some of those realities? How are you doing? How's it evolved?
Yeah.
What do you do about the light?
Yeah. After our hypnosis in February, you gave me the 20-minute kind of guided meditation. I did that every day for about a month. It got more ingrained. So now I do this meditation where I feel kind of a rainbow light coming from the center of the earth through me up onto the mothership with my higher self there. So sometimes my higher self is just me. It looks like me. I have like my little office there next to this vast kind of lecture hall. And on the stage, there's like a manted or an ancient gray talking, or sometimes my higher self is actually the mantid itself, or where I'm standing there. So that's kind of grown. So sometimes when I do that, I'll get thought impressions and ideas, or even some blogs I've written on my website have come from that.
Interesting.
Sometimes I do it first thing in the morning, or just I don't have any particular schedule. Sometimes I'll do it like usually I do that meditation every day, whenever it suits me. But if I get some inspiration or writing, sometimes I'll write down a page or several pages, and that's I got like a file on my computer of this writing, and part of this has been blogs I've been, and even some videos I made from those as well.
And do you find that your writing, it all connects to each other, or eventually it's like a continuation of a download?
Yeah, it's really relates to University Galactus idea of a mothership in orbit as a base for ETs, where humans have a relationship and training, and it all kind of revolves around that. It's like it's a deep part of my subconscious or my mind, the reality of this mothership, like 200 miles across somewhere above the atmosphere, and having a relationship with that. So it's usually about that.
And
Yeah.
before, like, do you just sit down and get busy, or do you have to imagine the rainbow spectrum and start imagining the ship, or does it just all kind of come flooding to you?
Well, I do. I sit down and do the actual meditation from the center of the earth. I think of this like iron crystal core of the earth, and this rainbow sort of call up through me, and then up to the mothership. So there's sort of these three different locations. So I usually do that and just see what develops, and sort of with the mantids there, or the grays, what they're thinking, or what we're talking about, what we're interacting about, and then it develops out of that.
Yeah, and then you get a storyline essentially that's continuous,
Yeah.
that is reflective of your waking life. It's like merging your dream life and your waking life. And the dream life arguably is that other dimension. It is those interstellar higher level conversations all wrapped it into one.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll become aware that I'm dreaming, and it'll be something quite off topic. So then I'll try to bring the dream back to University Galacticus. Think of the lecture hall, the ship, or other rooms I've been to, sort of shift in that direction, then dwell on that.
I'm
It keeps
wondering,
focusing on
Brian,
that.
I haven't gotten the, we got about 7.5 minutes left. And I'm curious, can you tell us what kinds of mantids you have met personally? Because we hear about all different kinds of categories and species, but under hypnosis with you, there was like different kinds, and they had different roles. And it'd be neat for you to share some insight, because maybe somebody listening out there can parallel and contrast to what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever met a mantid physically, but in terms of my visualization practice, there's sort of a room on the mothership with 9 mantises, and it's called a bot, is a Buddhist term for a room or a building where just the monks meet, but not the lay people. So this is kind of a mantid bot where only mantids are allowed, and not another other type of aliens or humans. And we're sitting in kind of an oval shape with these other mantids. So I relate to more of a brownish looking mantid. It's just from an illustration I saw, which really resonates with me, because I guess there's different shapes and sizes of mantis. So there's one particular look. I could even share a screen and show you if you want. I think
Yeah, if you want to share a screen, that'd be great.
yeah, let me just find the photo here. I got it on my computer.
And images are so important, because people watch movies, they look at pictures, and sometimes they just even hear a word, and then that's the trigger in a positive way that brings back all these memories flooding back to your mind. So there's probably, on a subconscious level, you saw this picture and you knew it with total certainty and conviction that that's the image right there for you to work with.
Yeah, this is the one here. Okay, I'll share a screen. Here we go. Is the share screen working? Oh, I think you have to
No.
enable share screen. You're the host.
How do I do this? Multiple participants can share simultaneously? Okay. Well, I'll try now. Does that work?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so
Oh,
this is
cool.
yeah, and this is the mantra that I really dwell upon as part of my higher self. And the one I visualize have this like little office under the lecture hall where I meet with a mantra on my right, and in front of me is an empty seat, which could be different people in different situations. And on the left is an ancient gray. Then to the left of that is another gray. So yeah, this is the image that really sticks in my mind.
And when you first saw this image, were you a bit spooked by it?
No, because I read about the nature of the mantis, like how they're perhaps like Richard Owen says, this is perhaps the highest intelligence humanity's ever encountered, and they have a lot of love and compassion. They spread life throughout the whole galaxy, very, very vast, high beings. So I had a lot of respect for the mantis. So in spite of the way it looks like a praying mantis or an insect, I'm well disposed to it, so it never really put me off.
Yes. And you know what's interesting too, going back to the child age 5 or any children out there, children actually don't get the spooks from images like that. It's the adults that are constantly telling kids how to think and feel, what images to be spooked about. And so it's just interesting, even a real life insect or praying mantis might gross somebody out, but really those are the true tillers of the earth, all of our weavers, our spiders, worms.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's some kind of link to sovereignty to planet Earth and also our own physical bodies, because we're the land, right? We're the temple for our
Yeah.
spirits. So we got about 3 minutes left. Any final thoughts or punchlines or anything that you'd like to say, Brian?
Well, he made me think when I was a child, I liked snakes. We lived in Victoria on Vancouver Island for a year, and I had a lot of gardener snakes, and I enjoyed them, and I would catch them and play with them. I had no fear of snakes. No one told me that at the time that they were a problem. I guess final thoughts. Well, I'm committed to raising awareness about the alien agenda for human advancement. I think it's a good thing. That I think they want to improve and develop or involve humanity to be more telepathic, more spiritually inclined, more interdimensional conscious. So I think this is a long, slow process over many centuries that they're developing humanity into. So I have a positive anticipation of the future. I'm happy about the future. I'm not negative about the future. So
Yeah.
life is good. And stick around, Gene. I want to see you more with our Preparing for ET Contact. I think we can develop this some more, with University
Yes,
Galacticus.
absolutely. I'm in my dance class now and just PMHI, trying to get a physical location. But I would love to revisit that and work with you with the University Galacticus. Absolutely. All right, we got about 2 minutes left. I want to say a special thank you to Brian for being my guest today on PMHI Passions. There's nothing strange about high strangeness. The paranormal is very normal, and it takes a lot of courage to share stories. I know sharing stories like this can seem trendy, but you've got people, real folks who live here like Brian and myself, who we've experienced stuff, and we used to be laughed at. We used to be scared to share our stories, and not anymore. And so I'm really hopeful more folks will share out. You can send me a Facebook message at Titanium Rooster. Titanium Rooster is my Facebook name, and I'd love to meet with you on a Monday at 1:30. I've got it posted in my Facebook group, Present Moment Hypnotherapy International. So join my group, and I'd love to see you. And Brian, thank you so much for being a guest. I enjoyed our time together, and it feels kind of weird not having another 2 or 3 hours to chit chat, right?
Yeah, we did a 3-hour video once, but you're really good to talk to, Ginny. It's easy to open up to you and talk to you about these things. So I really appreciate you as a host. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm going to sign off now. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's great to see you. Take care, everybody.